Alright, much brew about nothing. Playing some Esper Brains gifts in Modern. We have lands, but nothing else. I think I'm going to mulligan that. This is better. We have lands and actual cards. Trick Bind is just very high variance, and Anguish Unmaking is actually pretty high variance too. So, Lingering Souls all around. Shambling Vents, you. Opponent cracks Verdant Catacombs, gets a Godless Shrine tapped. So it looks like we're up against Mardu of some kind. Another Esper Charm. Let's just Flooded Strand. Go. Esper Charm's not bad. I don't mind having double Esper Charm. Oh, is this going to be... Oh, Liliana. Alright, that's actually pretty fine. We get to discard a Lingering Souls. So, kind of discarding half a card, essentially. Opponent discards a land. So let's crack Flooded Strand, get a Hollowed Fountain. Ooh, gifts. Well, let's flashback Lingering Souls, play Polluted Delta, pass the turn. This way, we get to keep this Lingering Souls in our hand to discard to our opponent's Liliana. So I think it's better to flash back there than to play from our hand. Alright, opponent ticks up Liliana. We will discard Lingering Souls, part 2. Opponent's down to 3 cards, discards a Path. I'll crack Polluted Delta, get an Overgrown Tomb, tapped. We draw a Swamp, so let's swing both at Liliana. Opponent helixes one of our tokens. And Sudden Shock's a token. Alright, I guess we're going to gifts for a gifts package that kills Liliana, most likely. We could gifts for Elesh Norn, but then it just dies to Liliana. So I think we got to get like Anguish Unmaking, Abrupt Decay, Noxious Revival, and something. And that way we make sure we get rid of this Liliana. We could also just try drawing cards, but that seems risky. We'll just discard the land for now. Opponent passes, so let's gifts. And get Abrupt Decay, get Anguish Unmaking, get a Lingering Souls, and a Noxious Revival. So this way we make sure that Liliana is going to die, no matter what our opponent does. If they dump both removal spells, we just Noxious Revival back. Oh, well that's easy. They leave us the Anguish Unmaking. So let's get rid of Liliana before it can ultimate. Opponent's down to 1 card, and we have a lot of Lingering Souls left around. Plus these Esper Charms, which could end up being good. Opponent passes. We draw planes, so let's... Black, blue, white. Alright, let's flashback a Lingering Souls. Do we even want to make our opponent discard? I don't even know if it matters. I think we might just want to draw cards and further our own game plan. I feel like we're in a good position. Like, hitting our opponent's last 2 cards is tempting, but they have one that's been sitting in their hand, which is either a bad removal spell or a land. Shambling Vents, yeah, they just don't have much going on. So we take Shambling Vents hit. And then let's draw 2 cards. Ooh, there's a Brain in the Jar. So, Brain in the Jar. And I think we just pass the turn and start taking up our Brain in the Jar for this Beck Call. Leave back our creatures because we're actually going to chump the Shambling Vents. Brain in the Jar and Beck Call just wins us the game. There's no reason to take extra damage here. Assuming they can't kill it. This might be a Nahiri. I think we can fight a Nahiri, though. Most likely. There's Nahiri. Sure. Takes it up. Alright, let's activate our Brain in the Jar. 1 counter. Polluted Delta. Get in at Nahiri. We can't let Nahiri ultimate. Now this time we are going to stop on our opponent's draw step and Esper Charm, because we're going to draw all the cards we need from this Beck Call. So make our opponent discard their last 2 cards. Makes Nahiri worse as well, because it won't be able to loot. Terminates one of our spirits, sure. Discards a land, I assume. Oh, Liliana, alright. So our opponent's out of cards. So they can take up Nahiri, but Nahiri can't really loot. Opponent passes. Alright, crack Polluted Delta. get a Watery Grave, tapped. And then the big payoff, put a counter on Brain, fuse a bet call, and I'm expecting this to do it. I mean, it doesn't just do it. They could draw an Anger of the Gods or a Pyroclasm or something, but this draws us 4 cards, gets us 4 1/1s, and I can't imagine our opponent getting back in the game after this. So here comes the tokens, here comes the card draw. So we get a Thoughtseize, not helpful. Temple Garden, Godless Shrine, and Shamboliant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright. Well, we drew a ton of lands. So let's attack with everything at the at the Nahiri, rather. Play a Shambling Vent, and I think we just passed the turn. Opponent draws another Shambling Vent, ticks up Nahiri, fires up Shambling Vent. We get to kill Shambling Vent, which is sweet. So activate our Brain in the Jar, cast a Lingering Souls, fire up our Shambling Vent, and just double block. Opponent's out of cards, so there's no risk of a removal spell or anything. So 1 Shambling Vent down. We're back up to 14. We draw gifts. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21 we can do if we gifts for... Now let's just Temple Garden, untapped, and we're just going to hard cast fuse this spec call. 8 mana. That's not really the plan of this deck. And our opponent scoops it up. Oh, sweet. So, what do we want here against Mardu control? Iona, is Iona good enough? Iona on, what would we put it on? Red? Kitchen Finks is resilient to removal. Graveyard to hate stuff. They probably do have Lingering Souls. I don't know if it's worth fighting, though. Engineered Explosives actually seems good. We can Engineered Explosives all the way up to X4 and kill a Nahiri if we get really desperate. Liliana does take care of Lingering Souls tokens, but doesn't do a ton else. But it might still be worth it. Trickbind is actually a sweet answer to Nahiri ultimating, so I think we'll keep that. Maybe go down this Agony Warp, doesn't seem that great. Also, Faraway doesn't seem that great. Let's bring in Liliana for Faraway. Kitchen Finks is the last question. Can we find room for Kitchen Finks? If our opponent gets a Lingering Souls draw, we might actually want Wrath, although we do have Engineered Explosives. I guess we can go down a Wrath now and bring in a Finks, since we can always gift for Explosive Supreme Verdict in Noxious Revival if we need to get rid of a bunch of Lingering Souls tokens. Do they have Dark Confidant? It seems possible. Maybe just go down 1 Thoughtseize for 1 more Finks. Let's... Relic? Alright, 1 more Thoughtseize for Relic. Let's try it like that. Well, if we don't get hit by discard, we got the combo. Alright, Duress probably takes our Brain in the Jar, I would assume. Yep, takes our Brain in the Jar. Well, Watery Grave, untapped. And let's Inquisition our opponent back. What's fair is fair. Painful Truce, Slaughter Games, and Terminate. Well, Painful Truce, down. So our opponent's hand is not very good. I don't even know if Slaughter Games is that good against us. Our deck is so... Wow, another Inquisition. Our deck is so varied thanks to Gifts Ungiven that it seems like it might be challenging to really stop us with Slaughter Games. They could take the Gifts package, or prevent that. They could also take, like, the Bet Call package. They could also take, like, Lingering Souls, I guess. But we have enough different stuff going on that it should be hard for our opponent to... Ooh. Drawing Aeons Torn wasn't exactly where we wanted to be. Mountain for our opponent. And passes. Well, this isn't going exactly how we had planned. So our opponent's going to be able to Slaughter Games. What they take, I really have no clue. I'm almost guessing Lingering Souls. Even though typically you wouldn't bring in Slaughter Games to fight Lingering Souls. Especially a deck like this that's gotta have access to Wrath, so. Alright, let's see what our opponent names with this Slaughter Games. The big problem here is we're just stuck on 2 lands, and we can't really do anything. Opponent still choosing. I don't think they know what to name either. Which isn't surprising, because, like I said, gift stacks, there's just so many one-ofs. And this deck is extremely like that. Like, how are you ever going to guess all the different things that could be in this deck? I mean, it is game 2, so they got to see some of our cards game 1. Alright, they named gifts, which is fine. We lose nothing from our hand, which is good. So now we're pretty much on the token plan. Plus we have Aeons Torn in hand, which we can cast eventually, potentially. So gifts down. There's a land. Alright, so Darkslake Shores, and we get to start casting stuff. Like Lingering Souls. Pass the turn. Lets us keep pressuring Planeswalkers, which is nice. Ooh, timely reinforcements for our opponent. Unburial Rights. Alright, let's just pass the turn and play for the longer game, I guess. We're behind on life total, so I think we actually want to trade with these soldiers. And our opponent has burn white, we do not. A Nahiri here would be bad for us. Inquisition. Alright, let's... Inquisition. Helixes, our face. Get rid of the Terminate. So our opponent's empty-handed, just has a land in hand. Flashback on your Lingering Souls, and pass the turn. Still pretty low on lands, unfortunately. But I think we take Soldier Beats now, for the time being. Because we want our spirits to pressure a Planeswalker if our opponent draws one. Oh my goodness. We might be getting to the discard to hand size, hope we draw lands to reanimate Aeons Torn plan. Which is not a good plan, by any means. Inquisition can take explosives, or... yeah. Takes explosives. Maybe we start leaving a token back to trade off if it comes down to it. No, never mind. We drew a disfigure, so we'll just kill the soldier token, I think. Our opponent has enough burn that we don't want to get too low in life. Jeez, we have not drawn lands. Duress. Alright. Let's get rid of the token. Opponent... I'm assuming just takes Supreme Verdict? I really don't know. You don't want to make us discard on Burial Rights. We have 2 Beck Calls, and we don't have nearly enough lands to cast them. I guess you could take one preemptively. Sooner or later we'll draw lands. And, I mean, 6 mana make 4 1/1 flyers isn't the absolute worst. There's a land. Alright, so let's... I don't know. Let's get in with our spirits. I don't really want to risk our Shambling Vents. Alright, our opponent terminates a spirit, so good thing we did not fire up Shambling Vents there. Things could have went very wrong. Would have went very wrong. Ah, there's our lands. Alright. So we are now 1 land away from just hard casting these calls. Oh, to get some birds. Which could legitimately work. Oh, it's so not what this deck wants to do. There's a Nahiri. Opponent takes up Nahiri, loots with Nahiri, discards a land. Well, we draw another Shambling Vents. We get to fire up our Shambling Vents. Send both at Nahiri. Gain a couple life back, put Nahiri down to 3. Shambling Vent, pass the turn. We're actually a turn away from hardcasting Aeons Torn as well. And then if our opponent doesn't have a path, and we've seen like Terminates and so forth, if they don't have actual path, we get to get it back again. Opponent discards Bloodstained Mire. Wall of Omens, puts up some defense, draws our opponent a card. Ooh, Anguish Unmaking is actually good. I think we might actually just take the turn off and get rid of that Nahiri. So let's attack our opponent. Stop on our opponent's upkeep. And just Anguish on making the Nahiri. Puts us down to 11, but gets rid of Nahiri. Inquisition can take a Beck. Technically, converted mana cost of 2. And opponent passes. We get an Overgrown Tomb. Opponent has 3 cards. Oh, I really don't want to get burned out. Let's play it safe here and Unburial Rites our Kitchen Finks. Puts us back up to 13. Overgrown Tomb, and then we get in with our flyer. Since we drew this green source, I kind of want to wait and actually fuse this Beck Call if possible. Our opponent can't have many discard spells left. They've used 3 Inquisitions and 2 Duresses, so I'm assuming they've used a high percentage of their discard. Alright, Anger of the Gods gets rid of our stuff. Well, we just want to draw a land and fuse Beck Call. Polluted Delta, that'll work. Crack Polluted Delta. Get an island. And doing it the hard way. Fuse our Beck Call, get 4 1/1s, draw 4 cards. So what do we get? Noxious Revival is sweet. Lingering Souls, Inquisition. Wow. Alright, well those were some very good draws. This means if we want to, we can actually just Noxious Revival back a Beck Call and draw 4 more cards and get 4 more 1/1s. Yeah, let's do that. Noxious Revival on our Beck Call. Opponent can take anything they want from our hand. Goes with, wow. Oh, Thoughtseize on Lingering Souls is painful. So I think we actually wait a turn, and what we do is Inquisition. Try to clear the way for our Aeons Torn. Wow. Force our opponent to use their removal. Just an Emrakul in hand. And this should clean up the game pretty quick. Aeons Torn. Get in for 6, and we're representing lethal next turn, and our opponent has 0 cards in hand, essentially. I mean, Emrakul doesn't count as a card. They are 14 mana sources away from Emrakuling. Opponent passes. Well, let's just Path Wall of Omens. We're just going to go for the kill here. And our opponent scoops it up. Well, that was pretty sweet.